I sent, Megan had me send it already, so it should be here. I had the handout.
I'm sure you did, and she's not here tonight, and I think that might have been a detail that got lost.
No, but she told me that whoever, when I sent it to her, that whoever was going to be in charge would do it. So who's that?
That would be me, and there's a gap there.
Oh, okay.
I can literally run off quick copies. If you,
Try that.
just the one side?
Yeah, just the one side. I, I think things are being run off as we speak. The, the handout, yeah. I got here a half hour early because I was so worried. Everett. Well, okay.
I like this, the wrestling incident.
There you go. Yes. Pardon? No, I attend St. Aidan's Episcopal on Camino Island. Yeah. It is, and this is the fault of the St. Aidan's copier. Okay. I'll bring you one. We aim to please. Is it too faint to read? Okay.
You gotta make them work. Gotta make them work for it. That's right. All right, we're going to get started here. You just tell me when to start yapping. I'll do an introduction. That's right. Like it's a sophisticated TV production or something. All right, here we are. We are here at St. Andrew's Episcopal Church here in Green Lake. I'm Father Kendall Haynes, the rector here, and we're just so glad to have everybody here for our second installment of Encounters with God with Dr. Frank Spina, Emeritus Professor of Old Testament Studies at Seattle Pacific University. We're very glad to have everybody who is joining us online, whether you're live watching right now or watching this as a recording. And we're just so grateful to have you here, Frank. And we're looking forward to installment number 2.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I really enjoyed our engagement last time, and I want to encourage that so that we don't have to wait for a Q&A session at the end. Just jump right in. Of course, if you have really serious disagreements, then just mind your own business. Okay, let's set the context for the story because this is interesting. Context is everything in these stories. First of all, in the outline of the narrative, Jacob has been for 20 years with his uncle Laban. Most of that time he has been outwitted and outsmarted. It was only toward the latter part that he gave as well as he took, and it made him very, very wealthy. And now he's ready to leave. He's on the way back. He tells his 2 primary wives and his 2 secondary wives that, you know, Uncle, your father has not been that all good to you. Will you come with me? And they all agree with him, and they take off for Canaan. And they have a 3-day head start. And just before they leave, Rachel, for inexplicable reasons, steals her father's household gods, right? And so when Uncle Laban finds out that they're gone and he takes off after them, God talks to Uncle Laban and says, I got stuff to do. I want to do with Jacob. You can't bother him. So when Uncle Laban gets here, he says, you know, this famous speech, these are my daughters, these are my children, everything is mine, but your God said I can't bother you, fine, but there's one thing I will not tolerate, and that is have my local God stolen. And Jacob, of course, who knows nothing about this, says, well, let's search and see if someone has them, and if they do, we'll execute that person on the spot. Jacob was very nice about that sort of thing.
Can you explain why he has household gods or what they are?
Well, they are gods that will do this and that. This is a polytheistic world.
So even though he believes in the
Well,
Israelite God,
we don't know if he knew you. And even those who believe in the Israelite God, you can't go 3 verses in the Bible where they're not worried about idolatry. It happens all the time. Yeah. Probably, if we got behind the text, historically, the belief in only one God was probably a very minority position. I mean, Solomon. Solomon famously had 1,000 wives and concubines, and he put shrines to the gods and goddesses of all 1,000 of them in Jerusalem and Judea. So not very monotheistic. Okay. Anyway, he says, so they start searching. And of course, the narrator has told us that Rachel has them, and Rachel is hiding them on the saddlebags, and she's sitting on them, so everyone is spread-eagled on their camels, and they're getting shaken down, and they've now searched everyone except for Rachel. Rachel cannot die. Why? Well, because Benjamin's not dead yet, or born yet. And Benjamin has to be born, or the Joseph story's not going to work. Yeah. And so, turns out Rachel was just as clever as Jacob, and when her father approaches her to search her, she says, it would be uncomfortable for me because it's that time of the month. And he is so embarrassed by this personally. Oh, that's fine. And so she doesn't get searched. The household gods are safe with her. Uncle Laban sits down. They have a reconciling meal. Uncle Laban goes home, and all Jacob now has to do is take all of his children and his wives and all of his vast wealth and all of his men servants and women servants and get back to Canaan. And as he's about to do this, he looks and says, Machanayim, which in Hebrew means 2 camps. He saw 2 camps of Malakim, angels again. Now, angels, you can't spot them in a crowd. They don't have wings. They certainly don't have 6 wings. They don't wear dazzling clothes, but whatever they're supposed to be, some kinds of minions of God, he saw them and he said, wow, 2 camps worth. Now, what's interesting, of course, is that when he left the land of promise, he dreamed about Malakim going up and down that ladder. Now, here, on the way of getting back to Canaan, same thing. So he's being bookended by angels, however you want to see them. And in some sense, it indicates that God is lurking about, one way or another. Now, of course, Jacob has all this wonderful wealth. He only wanted one wife. He ended up 4. He has 11 sons and 1 daughter, and he only has one problem, and that's Esau. And that's going to be a problem. So what does he do? He tells his servants to head toward Canaan, find Esau, and here's what I want you to tell him. Tell him that I am filthy rich and I want to make an accommodation. He'll understand. Jacob is trying to buy himself out. And the servants go. We don't know if they know anything about the tension that Jacob and Esau had. They come back and said, we found him, and he's coming to meet you, and he's got 400 men with him. And of course, Jacob thinks, uh-oh, he's hired armed retainers. And now there's this panic. And so Jacob does several things as he prepares to meet Esau. Number 1, he decides to cut his losses. He says, let's divide our camp into 2. If he attacks Camp A, Camp B will escape, and vice versa. Then the second thing he does is he puts together a fabulous bribe. And it's really interesting because the number of animals in this is quite staggering. When Jacob was greatly afraid, knowing that Esau was coming, he divided the people, and he did this. And then here's the bribe he did. 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams. These are all the details we don't ever see in a children's story. They're very important. 30 milk camels and their colts, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 she-asses, and 10 he-asses. That's about half the number of animals in the state of Montana right now. I mean, it's just an absolutely absurd present. And in that ancient economy, this was Bill Gates stuff. This is enormous wealth. And I want my servants to put a little group of animals and march. And when Esau comes and says, who are you and what's with the animals? Say, well, they belong to your servant Jacob, and he's very interesting in accommodation with you. And so you're going to have this Ringling Brothers, Barnum Bailey circus going, and it's going to be an offer he cannot refuse. It's just way too well. Now, before he, pardon? What's that? Oh yeah, he doesn't, it's not all of them. That shows how wealthy he is, yeah. Yeah. But it is significant. Now, before he had put this together, he did what I call a foxhole prayer. Now, I like the only people that criticize foxhole prayers are people who haven't been in foxholes. If you're in a foxhole, you understand it. But in this prayer, he's just too good. This is not the Jacob we know. Here's what he says. He's really worried. "O God of my father of Abraham and God of my father Isaac." Right, the perfect salutation. He should be an Episcopal priest. Okay. "O Lord, who said to me, 'Return to your country and your kindred, and I will do your good.'" He's reminding God what he had promised him at the latter dream story, as though God had forgotten. "I am not worthy of the least of all the steadfast love and all the faithfulness which you have shown your servant, for with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become Machanayim," 2 companies. And this is the most honest thing Jacob has ever said, even though it's in his foxhole prayer. Then he says, "Deliver me, I pray you, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and slay us all, the mother with the children." He just doesn't want that to happen. Of course, if you can save me in the process, that would be nice too. "But you did say, 'I will do you good and make your descendants as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude.'" To which God could have said, "Well, I already got your descendants. But we're going to..." And so he's sort of reminding him, he's really, really desperate. Then, he and his wives and his kids, he has them cross the Jabbok. This is the river that you have to cross to get into Canaan. And he makes go all that he owns. So this is a sizable endeavor, even though it just takes a few Hebrew verbs and nouns and adjectives to do it. I want you to concentrate on how surrounded Jacob is with things, animals, and people. When he gets there, Machanayim, 2 camps worth of angels. He's got 4 wives, 11 sons, 1 daughter. He's got men servants, and maiden servants, women servants. And he has all these animals, and as was said, he only gave a portion of it. So he's surrounded with activity. And the next thing you know, he is alone. He is alone. He made his wives and children go to Jabbok. Somehow they disappear. And he is alone. And the very fact that the narrator wants us to know that he is alone tells us everything. He's going to be dealt with now, but he's all on his own. He can't go to Uncle Laban, can't go to his grandfather, can't deal with any servants. He can't even go to his wives. And they've been ordering him around for 4 chapters. But now he is alone. And this is where the really interesting stuff happens. When he is alone, he wrestled with a man. A man. And the wrestling match lasts till dawn. Ish, one of the most common Hebrew words there is. Ish, just a man. Just a man. And that's, now again, this is what the narrator is telling us. This isn't what Jacob's saying, I'm wrestling. A man wrestled with it. Now, what in the world's happening? Where does this man come from? Why is he wrestling? In fact, it's a very interesting Hebrew word. It's not used very commonly. Its nominal form means dirt or dust. They're routing round in the dust, in the ground. It's, we're horsing around, so to speak. The verbal form is not used, I think maybe only one other time. But anyway, he's wrestling with this man. And it's almost daybreak. And the man says, "Let me go, because it's almost daybreak." Why does the man want to leave? What is it about the sun coming up that's going to be a problem? All of this is left completely ambiguously. You jumped me, man. Now you want to leave? Let me go, because it's almost daybreak. And Jacob says, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Number one, you would think that if someone had jumped you and you're wrestling with all night, you'd be glad to let him go and get out of there. Are you is a crazy man? And why does he think that this man is capable of blessing him? And what kind of a blessing does Jacob want? Now, we've seen Jacob really think through how to get a birthright. And we remember the lunch story. Esau's been out hunting all day. He hasn't caught anything. He comes home. He's tired. He's hungry. Jacob's cooking lunch. And a brother, a twin brother says, "Boy, that smells good. Can I have a bowl?" Well, of course. But I want you to sign something first. What kind of a brother is that? A terrible one, of course. But Esau, he thinks he's at death's door. So what good is a birthright if I'm going to be dead? Now, he's not going to be dead. That's kind of an exaggeration. You're not going to be dead by missing lunch. We know that from Lent, don't we? We can miss a lunch and a supper and a breakfast, and we're just fine. It takes a long time to die of starvation. But he signs it off. So Jacob has had that birthright. And then we know what he did to get his father's blessing, a blessing that was supposed to go to Isaac. Pardon? I'm sorry, Esau. Thank you. Even I get confused on these names. And so he goes and he gets Isaac's blessing, and that blessing had two parts. One is you're going to be wealthy, and number two, you are going to be the child of promise, and it's going to be your descendants that's going to eventuate to be Israel. So what does he want now? I mean, we could argue that he got really blessed with Uncle Lavan. He got all these animals, he got all these wives, he had all these children. You've really done well for yourself. But he wants a blessing, although the narrator doesn't tell us what exactly does he have in mind. Does he want a blessing that says, you'll be safe from Esau, you'll get even more wealth, you'll get even more wives? We're not told. I will not let you go until you bless me. And the man says, "What's your name?" And he says, "Yaakov." And when he says that, it's sort of like a confession because of what his name means. What's your name? Cheat? Crook? Slick? We might name a child with a nickname But if you name him Slick, he's not going to do well in the used car business. You're not going to buy a used car from that person. And pardon? Yes, of course. Yes, yeah, exactly. But he didn't need to sell cars. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and so. Well, the old world is supplant. That's old English. We don't use that word, but it means grab. I mean, he grabbed the hill in the struggle when they were being born. He grabbed it. So, what's a good English equivalent? You edged him out. You've pushed him away. None of it is nice.
Maybe an opportunist?
Opportunist, yeah. Yeah. And the name is actually kind of a confession. And of course, Jacob needs to make a confession. Because even though he's the child of promise, he's done it by being a hook and a crook. He was not a good brother. Now, you're right, Esau, the narrator says he despised his birthright. And he did. He treated it as a triviality. But there was not 1 ounce of fraternal affection on Jacob's part. And when his mother came to him, when she knew that Isaac was about to bless Esau, she says, I need to get you in there. I got to put this disguise on you. I know how to make that dish that Esau's going to make. I'll give him your... He doesn't say, Mom, that would be wrong. No, he says, no, if I get caught with this silly costume, I'm going to get cursed instead of blessed. So he wasn't worried about the morality. He was worried that he might get caught and be in trouble. So he's really not been a nice guy. Now, he does a little bit better. He's a little bit more submissive to Uncle Laban until he realizes Uncle Laban is taking advantage of him, and he finally gives his uncle his comeuppance. But yeah, it's not a nice name, and it's going to be changed here. Right? Anyway, this man says, how does he have this authority? He says, well, from now on, your name will not be Yaakov, but Yisrael. And in the etymology, why? Because you have struggled with people and with God or gods or a God and prevailed. Now, there's this I think it's the book, the little prophetic book Hosea, I think chapter 12, verse 4, he mentions this story, and he says that Jacob wrestled with Elohim. And I think the RSV says a divine figure. And then that's in prophetic lore, they do see this as a divine figure. But the narrator in Genesis only sticks with an ish, a man. Now, you have to say, well, wait a minute. How can just an ordinary man change Jacob's name? Not to mention, how can an ordinary man bless him? Well, blessing is kind of an interesting thing, because just as it is in our circles, blessing can be a very, very significant liturgical activity, and it could be part of everyday conversation and everything in between. When you sneeze, God bless you. Or sometimes we do it negatively. Oh, my wife, God bless her. Or my husband, God bless him. Or we just...
Bless your heart.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so the same thing in Scripture, blessing can be really, really. I mean, when Isaac blesses Jacob, and then Esau's upset, he says, "Pop, you need to bless me." He says, "I can't. It's out." You can't say I had my fingers crossed. It's in our culture where you have to sign away and have something notarized. You're under oath so as to tell the truth, because otherwise we can't expect you to tell the truth. But in a culture where a word means everything, once you say that blessing, it's out. It has a life of its own. Go ahead.
So do I understand that my brain always thought that Jacob wrestled with an angel, but that's not what it says in Genesis. That's something somewhere else that's like infiltrating my brain.
I think there's a well-known from the Middle Ages a depiction of Jacob wrestling with an angel with the wings.
Okay, so the art major prevails.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I mean, there's an awful lot in Christianity that has nothing to do with the Bible, where most of what we believe about hell and heaven is from Dante and Milton and not from the Bible. I promise you. Yeah. But yeah, it never says he wrestled with an angel. And of course, he renames him, and then Jacob asks our question, what's your name? That's what we want to know. And when they're doing all of this, the man realizes he can't get away. So he cheats. This is very, very difficult in terms of physiology, because it's sort of like part of the hip, the hip socket somehow, that he put it out of joint so that he could escape. And then, this gets really interesting, the text says either he blessed him or he said goodbye. Because in Hebrew, berek can be either. Now, most of the goodbye, like if you say goodbye in French or revoir, it means this is before I'll see you again, or in German, auf Wiedersehen, until we see again. But I think goodbye has to do with a blessing of sort. Yeah. Yeah.
God be with ye, right?
Pardon?
God be with
Yes.
ye.
Yeah, something
Why,
like
it's
that.
goodbye ye.
And so you don't know whether or not he blessed him somehow, no content of the blessing, or he said, no, I'm going to take my leave. Goodbye. Now here's why I need to do a big footnote in this. The biblical material has been highly, highly edited. This is material that has been literally stitched and pasted over years, either by individual tradents or individual traditionalists or committees. We just don't know. And it's marvelous at how they put this material together. Now, the reason I think the man, the Ish, said goodbye is because Jacob is going to get his name changed in another setting, and then he's going to act as though he had been blessed in being the religious reformer he is in Genesis 35. And so in the final editing, the final canonical state of the text, here he says, goodbye. See you later. You might get that blessing, Jacob, but it's not going to come from me. You're going to have to wait for that. And later on, he will get it. But not just yet. Not just yet. Now, let's think about what the man said. You have struggled with people and with God. Well, it's easy to talk about how he struggled with people. Struggled with his twin brother in the womb, for pity's sakes. This is a prenatal struggle. And they are struggling. Why? Why are they struggling? Remember, this is the whole reason why Rebecca goes to God. She's having a really, really tough day in her pregnancy. And it's so bad, she said, I can't take this. And that's when God says to her, you've got 2 nations in your womb. Perhaps the worst thing you could ever say to a woman having morning sickness. And then she says, the elder will serve the younger. And no other instructions. God doesn't say, now here's what I want you to make that happen. We're never told that Rebecca tells Isaac any of this. And the reason she's upset is because these 2 guys are struggling. Why are they struggling right away? In the story. Because they want to be born first. They somehow know that whichever one of us is born first is going to have the right of primogeniture. We're going to be the oldest boy. Everything is going to be for me. And I mean, think of what's going on in the royalty in England. 2 brothers, but one of them is the elder brother. He's going to be the king. And he might be the king even before, because, Charles is ill, yeah. And too bad. It's the luck of the draw. So they're trying to be born first. Esau makes it. Just barely, because Jacob grabs him. It's not, sometimes you say, well, my twin brother is 2 minutes or 3 minutes. This was not. He's holding on. The worst thing that could happen was for Esau to win that race, because God turned it around. Now we see that all over the place in the Bible. Ephraim and Manasseh are blessed with cross. David is the youngest son of Jesse's sons, and he becomes the one. So you have this sort of reversal motif. You get the same reversal that Hannah prayed in her famous prayer, and that prayer was the same. That was the template for the Magnificat. Yeah, the hungry will be full, the full will get hungry, the poor will be rich, the person who's low will be exalted. All that, so that the first shall be last. I think you've read it somewhere. So so Jacob struggled with Esau right off the bat. He struggles with his father. He's willing to deceive his father. In some sense, he struggles with his mother. He didn't want to do this, but I might get caught. And of course, he struggles with Uncle Laban. I mean, Uncle Laban, he really did him dirty. When Jacob goes to Uncle Laban, he goes to a well. Anytime that you go to a well in the Bible, something romantic or erotic is going to happen. Moses meets his wife at a well. Jesus and the woman at the well, there are those erotic sort of overtones. Jacob is smitten right off the bat with Rachel, but she has an older sister. And in the scheme of things, the older sister is given away in marriage before the younger one. Jacob is so enamored that he makes a really stupid bargain. Uncle Laban says, you've been working for me. I know your family, but I don't think it's right for you to work for nothing. Name your wage. Who doesn't want to have your boss name your wage? Jacob says, okay, I'll work for 7 years if I can have Rachel. Really dumb. He's got the hots for Jacob and he's going to work for 7 years? Why not say, I'll give you 6 months? Oh, no, that's not enough. Let's negotiate 7. And on the wedding night, when he goes to his wedding bed, he gets up in the morning and it's another woman in his bed. Now, I hate when that happens. And so he has to go to Uncle Laban. Said, no, there's been a mistake. There's a wrong woman in my bed. Oh, no. You know the custom. You don't ever prefer the younger before the elder, do we? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then he said, well, I want Rachel, and you can have her. Of course, it'll be a matter of another 7 years. Yeah. So he struggled with Uncle Laban. And most of the time, he was taking the worst part of it. Okay. How has he struggled with God? Well, it's kind of interesting. Do you remember the very first thing that Jacob ever said about God? He was in the tent with this ridiculous disguise. And Isaac, who was decrepit, and he couldn't see well. He could hear all right, but he couldn't see well. But he's a little suspicious. That's why he asked, I want to hug you. Oh no, that's Esau. I could tell that furry kid anyway from a mile away. But he says, Isaac says to Jacob, who's pretending to be Esau, you know, Jacob has this dish because his mother made it. She knew what spices to use. And he says, wow, how did you get game and clean it and cook so quickly? And Jacob says, because the Lord your God helped me, Papa. The very first thing he ever said about God was a bold-faced lie. Not an ounce of truth. And, of course, you could argue that the latter story indicated some struggle with God, because when God makes all these promises, he says, all right, if you'll do this. In other words, it's like these ads now that have a riff on 100%. I'll give 80%. All right, guys, we got to go out there in the second half and let's give it up 75%. That's a bad speech, right? But and that's what Jacob's doing. I'll give you a tenth. I'll do just a little bit. So that's his struggles with God. And of course, in the 20 years he's with Uncle Laban, he struggles. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's being bossed around. And there's no prayer. The first prayer he ever does is this foxhole prayer. Go ahead.
So fast forward. Is the nature of God such as this example cites, where he says, I promise you this if?
Well, God doesn't say the if. Jacob says the if.
Jacob says the
if. Yeah.
Okay.
No. God says, I'm going to make your descendants more than the sand of the sea. Although I think here he uses dust of the earth. I'm going to bring you back b'shalom, in peace. I'm going to do all this. And Jacob says, if you'll do that. So Jacob's little bit
so
of
we're
doubt
the
there.
ones that put conditions on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at least in this story. Now there are places where God will do conditions. Obey me, or there are negative consequences, or there's positive consequences, but not here. Here Jacob does the iffy. Yeah. Good question though. Okay, let's see. Now, Jacob believed 100% that he had wrestled with God. Because first he says, I can't believe I'm not dead. There was this strong belief that if you looked on God, you didn't survive. Remember the famous Moses thing? Can I see you? No, I'm going to brush right back. You can have a little look at my rear end, and that's it. There was this very, very powerful belief that being in the presence of God was kind of dangerous, sort of a third rail thing. But Jacob believes he's seen God, and he even names the place. He says, I have seen God panim panim, face to face, and I'm still alive. So he named it Pineo, which means the face of God. Now this is the first time Jacob will use the face of God. He will see the face of God when Esau is so magnanimous in receiving him. So twice Jacob sees the face of God. Now the question is, and I'm so intrigued about this in terms of the biblical narration. The narrator is, I think, having a lot of fun as to how people will deal with this. Because the narrator will not, he will tell us what Jacob thinks. But for the narrator, it's a niche. A niche that could not get the best of Jacob. An niche that had to put out his hips out. You would think that God would be a pretty good wrestler. And of course, in the Jewish interpretive tradition, this is very, very interesting because the Lord cannot be in some kind of an embodied form. Even though very closely, there are places in the Old Testament where God comes. I mentioned the Moses thing. And of course, at the metaphorical level, the hand of God or the eyes of God and so forth. And there's a very, very well-known Talmudic scholar, Daniel Boyarian, who argues, I think correctly, that the idea of the incarnation was in fact a Jewish idea. It was a minority view, and that's those who followed Jesus finally said, oh, wow. Now, a Boyarian would say he does not believe that Jesus is the Messiah. He's an Orthodox Jew. But he says that the God of Abraham and Sarah, the God of Isaac and Rebekah, can do anything that he damn well pleases, including be incarnate with man, even though he does not think Jesus is one. Primarily because the Messianic age has not dawned. You know, Jesus says the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, but there's an awful lot of brokenness still in the world. No, go ahead.
Is there a distinction, though, with that embodiment of God with the Eden story, right? I mean, God walks.
Oh, yes, yeah, and he walks in the cool of the evening.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
And he walked among them, and where are you guys?
Exactly, yeah, exactly. It could not be more anthropomorphic, sure.
There are different sources in that, in Genesis, the J, E, P, and D. Right. Is it possible that we're going across source boundaries in some of this, or is this all one, say, the Elohist or the Yahwist? Well,
the walking story is J, because it's the garden story. The first story is E. That's the priestly material. Or I'm sorry, the priestly is B. Yes, you're right about those sources, but in the final editing, somebody sat down, and in fact, I saw once this wonderful cartoon, either Christian Century or Christianity Today. It shows these guys, papers strewn out all rolls, and J says to P, I think this should go here. You almost see this and wonder, and the editing was absolutely interesting because this material was written by different people to different audiences for different reasons at vastly different times. None of it was was written the way we would write a book. You know, I've written 2 books, and the only sort of the editorializing has to do with when you send it to the publisher, or if you ask a colleague to help me out with the language, that sort of thing, or when you're quoting and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But this is very, very complex, and this is done over hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. And finally in different languages. When the New Testament writers, they quote from the Old Testament a lot, most of the time, though, they're not doing the Hebrew Bible. They're doing what we would call the Septuagint, which is a Greek Bible. Now, that was a Jewish translation into Greek. It wasn't a Christian thing, and it was 250 years before Jesus. But people did not know Hebrew anymore. If you're going to do the language of commerce, you're going to go to the restaurant, you're going to speak Aramaic. Jesus probably spoke Aramaic.
I used to think the Septuagint and the Hebrew ran pretty parallel, but at one time, and it was at that story of Jacob worked for Rachel for 7 years, and it seemed in his eyes like a few days because he loved her so much. The emotion and just the emotion doesn't come through in the Greek. It comes through in the Hebrew, but not in the Greek.
Well, the thing is, some of the Greek translations are very, very literal. Some of them are more, what would you call it? Yeah, well, all of it is interpretive. All translations are interpretive. But some of them are just not as literal. But here's the problem is, we do not always know what Hebrew texts a particular writer is translating.
The textual problem.
Yeah, and the most of the Hebrew Bible that I read is mostly what is called the Masoretic text. This is a text that was solidified by the time of Jesus, and the medieval scholars that were called Masoretes, these are Jewish scholars, they kept it alive, they annotated it and that sort of thing. But there are places where we just simply don't know. Either is the Septuagint going its own way, or does it have a different Hebrew manuscript?
And there is many Septuagints also. So.
That's right. There's no such thing as a Septuagint.
Yeah, I think it's deliciously undigested. That's the way I look at the text.
Well,
so if the story isn't resolved, it's not resolved.
It's not resolved. In fact, I used to tell my students, 2 things that you don't like, I like. If a text is ambiguous, that's on purpose. If there are contradictions, pay attention, because contradictions make meaning. They're not a bad thing, they're a good thing. And here's my illustration. My brother gave me my first color television sometime 1975 or so. And me and my son and my wife sat down one day to watch The Wizard of Oz. I had never seen it in color, except when I was 5 years old, a cousin of mine took me to the movies to see it, but I could not get past the flying monkey. She had to take me home. And so when I watched it, I realized for the first time as an adult, oh, the first part of that movie is black and white. And then in the dream sequence, it's in color. That's why the horse of a different color, right? And I said to my students, now you could take two positions. One is, this has got to be the worst piece of editing that Hollywood has ever done. Or, oh, Dorothy's early life was drab and gray. she was getting in trouble. She was falling into the pigsty. That mean lady with the dog would ride by. Her life was not a colorful life. Then, in the dream, the Emerald City. And it was the contradiction itself that made the meaning. And the same thing here. I think the narrator leaves it an ish so that we cannot settle on it. We cannot say, and maybe Hosea is right. He says Elohim, doesn't use the article, and Elohim is itself ambiguous because it literally means gods. But sometimes it means God with a capital G, we would say in English, because they're referring to the Israelite God. And sometimes it means the gods that you're not supposed to worship. Which is it? Well, mostly you can tell from context. Context is everything. But Jacob believes that he has met God face to face. And he walks away limping. He's affected. He doesn't go unscathed. Most of the time when we think of encounters with God, we feel all bubbly. This is going to be nice. And we don't even think of, I might limp. I might not get from God what I think I want or need. And this very, very last little detail. The narrator says, oh, by the way, there's a reason why we don't eat sinew. We are honoring, we are going to ritualize this event in our eating habits. And of course, eating habits are really important in Torah. Now, they're not so important that we should be look down our noses, because what we eat or don't eat, what we drink or don't drink, have to do with many, many religious traditions. There are Christian traditions, Episcopalians would never understand, but there are in the Methodist traditions, these are teetotalers. There was a man, a Methodist layman, who wanted to figure out how to help people in the United States to have the Eucharist, but without having to drink wine. That man was named Welch. Because until you figure out how to do juice, this stuff is going to ferment, and if you control the ferment, you're going to get really good wine. Okay. There are places where you don't drink caffeine. Seventh-day Adventists don't do that. Many of them are vegetarians. In fact, I remember once, I'm a member of the Society of Biblical Literature, and we would have a big national meeting and then a regional meeting. And one year, Walla Walla College over near Spokane, they wanted to be a host. They were very gracious. And in these conferences, you're drinking 10 cups of coffee a day. You know, scholars are boring as hell, so we have to keep the coffee in. And it was interesting because there were all these stations with big urns with hot water and little packets of Sanka. Oh dear, yes. Especially when the people from Seattle, where you go to get a coffee on the way to your Starbucks, that sort of thing. But I mean, bless their hearts. They wanted to be gracious, and they had no understanding of how you do coffee. There was no really good stuff. I mean, Sanka, even if you like that stuff, is the worst.
Let alone after 10 cups of coffee, 10 glasses of wine.
Yeah, exactly. And there are other places where what we eat or don't eat are very culturally tradition. This is social construction, so we go easy on this. Anyway, it says this is why we don't eat the sinew. And I like the idea that with all of its ambiguity and all of its interesting contradictions, so to speak, we're still going to ritualize it. We're going to actually pay attention to this. I always tell my students, every detail matters. Of all the things to stop that story with, oh, by the way, let me let you know why we don't eat sinew, because we don't eat sinew. That sounds very tough to me. But it all depends, right? We love chicken embryos. We call them eggs. But if you call them embryos, IHOP would have to shut down. Yeah. And we call it sushi, because raw fish won't work. But sushi makes it good somehow. So all those things are culturally driven. But anyway, I think that we said this is a significant event. This is something that has to be ritualized. We need to have this as part of the way we live our lives under God. And if you said to somebody, well, did he wrestle with a god or a man? The answer is yes. And that brings me back to the thing about an angel. Think of the Jewish story that angels sometimes do not know that they're angels. An angel doesn't necessarily do everything right or well, but they can do angelic things. You can do angelic things. Even I can do angelic things without ever realizing that you're being angelic. Probably if you think you're being angelic, that's a good sign that you're not being angelic. Go ahead.
Is it possible that you would then also be wrestling with God? Is it also possible that we couldn't be realizing that we are wrestling with God?
Oh, absolutely.
Just like yeah.
Yeah, and some of our most pious moments, we may be wrestling with God. We may be dead wrong about this or that. I'll never forget, I was a teaching fellow for 3 years at the University of Michigan, and I was doing basically a world religion course. It was wonderful, by the way. I lectured once a week, and they were paying me $500. This is 1970. I took a big pay cut when I came to be a professor. And I remember in this one class, I had an evangelical lad and a very, very worldly Jewish type in the class. And this evangelical made some disparaging remark about people who couldn't hold their liquor. And this guy just couldn't. He says, you know what? He says, I could be drunk on my ass and be more religious than you. And of course, I'm thinking myself, yeah, that's right. But I didn't say it that way. But I mean, that's why. I mean, what he's really put on is the presumption that you got it all figured out. Rather than we're wrestling with men and gods and two companies of angels and angels in the dreams. And what exactly are they doing? We don't know. Angels show up in very interesting places. We'll get them in the Abraham story, or we already had them. You know, the 3 guys show up for supper.
It's kind of like when Cary Grant, the bishop's wife, that vision of being an angel. Well, you just don't know if you're, walking down the street, you're looking in the face of a murderer or the face of an angel. You just don't know. And
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. And
the movie nails it.
Yeah, and I like, once in a while, and I'm embarrassed to say that I'm surprised, but once in a while I'm so surprised that my assumptions about someone were completely wrong. Here's my final story here. I was doing an adult ed at St. Paul's in Bellingham. And it was like at 7 o'clock, so I'm leaving about 8:30. It was dark. I needed to get gas. I was living in Redmond at the time. And so I stop at one of these 7-Eleven places, and I'm pumping gas. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this man walking toward me. And my first instinct was, do I have any change? You know, very often, I can. I did, yeah. I can go from Seattle to Pittsburgh and not have $1 in my wallet. I used to drive both of my wives crazy. But you get credit cards, right? Anyway, that was my first thing. And as he walks up, he really looked scruffy. And he said, "Father, would you mind praying for me?" And, you know, inside I was saying, "Spina, you are an idiot." Because I thought he was going to want some change or $1. So I asked him, "What's your name and what I need to pray for?" And we prayed right there. And I just thought, how many times have I missed an opportunity because I assumed something about a person that had nothing to do with reality? He was being an angel to knock me off my horse. And I've never forgotten it. Yeah. So, an Ish, or as Hosea says, Elohim, maybe it doesn't matter. In any case, the narrator is not going to scratch that itch. Next week, Moses at the burning bush. Another oldie but goodie. You are a wonderful group. Okay.
Is there any reading we can do to kind of bone up for next week?
I sent the agenda for the 5 things. We gave it. Oh, it's online.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it has all the references right there. Perfect. In fact, let me see if I have them. Okay.
Yeah, it's on the events page.
Oh, one more thing. Charles Wesley wrote about 6,000 hymns. One of them the tune is Wrestling Jacob. It's called "Come, O Thou Traveler Unknown." 26 verses. You have to bring your lunch to sing it. If I had had those 10 glasses of wine, I'd sing it for you. But otherwise, I'm not going to do that. This is wonderful. "Come, O thou traveler unknown, whom still I hold but cannot see. My company before is gone, and I am left alone with thee. With thee all night I mean to stay, and wrestle till the break of day. I need not tell thee who I am, my misery and sin declare. Thyself has called me by my name. Look on thy hands and read it there. But who, I ask thee, who art thou? Tell me thy name, and tell me now. In vain thou strugglest to get free. I never will unloose my hold. Art thou the man that died for me? The secret of thy love unfold. Wrestling I will not let thee go, till I thy name, thy nature know." And of course, he reads it Christologically, as you would in 18th century. But it's a beautiful, beautiful hymn. I love the time. I don't think it's in our hymnal. I don't think so. 18th century, yeah. He was very prolific. He really was.
So,
Was.
before we conclude, Amanda, were there any questions that have come through in the chat? Okay.
Well, we'll have to figure out some way to those people in television.
That's
land.
right. Y'all just start typing in those questions there. Yes. Oh, you have one? Oh, no problem. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Wonderful. And have a good night.
So we didn't get to the story of the reconciliation. It's
Well, that comes. That's a wonderful story.
oh, it